Welcome to the What It Takes podcast, where we talk to successful entrepreneurs, leaders, and CEOs across different industries. I'm your host, Darren, and in each episode, we're going to figure out how they got through difficult times, but most importantly, what it really takes to succeed. So whether you're just starting out your career or you're looking to level up your business game, my goal is to give you real insights and practical lessons from people who have achieved what you want. Hey everyone, welcome back to the What It Takes podcast. I'm joined today by Andrew Freed, truly incredible guy. He used to work a regular 9 to 5, which most of you probably also do. But he came to a point in his life where he decided he was going to become an entrepreneur. And his journey so far has been really cool. I mean, today, Andrew, you self-manage 150 rental units, and I think you own more than 250 units, which is pretty incredible. But obviously, it wasn't always like this for you. So, what was the point for you leading up to, what did you do before you started this journey?
Well, first, I just want to thank you for having me on your podcast, Darren. It's an absolute delight to be able to educate your audience on kind of what steps I did to kind of reach a level of success in entrepreneurship that I hope they can reach as well. So to your point,
Thank you.
Of course, my journey was an incredibly quick journey that honestly happened, in my perspective, very much in a blink of an eye. But over the course of 4 years, I went from zero rental units to over 250 doors.
Crazy.
And people ask me, how did I do this, right? And it really all starts with an epiphany, right? Prior to finding real estate, prior to finding my calling, I really went after the American dream like everybody else, right? Get a good education, get a good job at a good company, work at a prestigious institution, buy a nice swanky condo in a city, right? Like more or less, I did all that and I essentially made it. Like I had a 6-figure job. Like I had really good benefits. I literally made it by society standards. But when I went home at night, I felt empty. I felt unfulfilled. I felt like there was a certain level of, potential that I was leaving on the table, right? I really did. And, I drowned that ambition, my dreams, in vices, right? I drowned it in, in weed, in women, in video games, essentially anything I could do to take my mind off of my dreams and my aspirations. And I did that for a good 5, 6, 7 years. I was in this career for over 10 years. And then at one point I ran across an amazing book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that book opened my eyes to the power of not only saving, but investing. And more or less, it really kind of unlocked my eyes to the fact that, you can't save yourself to financial freedom. At this particular rate, in my state, at that stage, I was already in the workforce for 10 years, right? Yeah. I saved $250,000 up to that point, right? Sounds good, right? However, the common thread that I noticed through our Rich Dad, Poor Dad was real estate, right? So I actually looked at the asset allocation in my portfolio of that $250,000 net worth. $200,000 came from this 1-bedroom condo I bought 5 years ago that I completely forgot about. It literally took me 10 years to save $50,000. So at that point I knew, going the normal American dream W-2 route was an unsustainable path towards financial freedom. It would take me a good 30, 40, 50 years to even taste financial freedom. And that, honestly, that scared the living hell out of me, right? And at that point, my dynamic in my head changed from, do I really want to work 30, 40 more years to potentially maybe or maybe not retire? Or do I just want to go at it now, YOLO, and if I freaking fail, I'll retire in 30 to 40 more years anyway, right? And that was my mindset on really what switched my drive and really kind of propelled me into this crazy world of real estate.
That's pretty crazy, man. I think a lot of people can relate to that as well, right? Where they have a job, they're just doing the 9 to 5, they go home and they're just empty, right? They play games, they smoke weed. I mean, I used to do the same. I was very much into video games. It was all I did after I finished work. And then I'm like, is this going to be my life? Am I going to go to work every day and just come home and then play games? Like, there's got to be more to it. But for you, you're mentioning that Rich Dad Poor Dad was that pivotal moment for you where you're now realizing like, hey, I can go into real estate, I can make a lot more than 50,000 over a 10-year period. And when you decided, how was that decision for you? Like when you read that book, what was going through your head? How was it like, saying to yourself, you know what, I'm just going to give this up. I'm just going to go all in here on real estate.
So it really came down to the fact that like during COVID, we had all the time in the world. But what
Mm,
that translated into is the fact that I ran out of things to do. I watched
mm,
all the movies I could. I played all the video games I could. I literally ran out of things to do. And the
yeah,
only thing to do left was to read this book on my table, right?
yeah.
So I picked it up and I literally can relive this moment. I was literally sitting on my couch reading this book, tears going down my face, realizing that I've been doing it wrong for a good 30
Mm,
years, right? And I had literally the dynamic on how to reach financial freedom and how to gain control of your time the wrong way. And this book opened my eyes to the power of entrepreneurship. It opened my eyes to the power of real estate. And it really opened my eyes to very much what you experienced, where the reason why you really escaped into those video games is because you wanted to build some sort of grand character or the best version of yourself inside this little tiny imaginary box, right? And I
mm-hmm.
came to realize with reading in that book that I can literally translate that reality to this world with enough
Yeah.
effort, with enough grind, with enough ambition, right? And create the reality I want in this actual world. So that moment it was absolutely mind bending for me. And that's really where my mindset shift from a savings mentality to an investing mentality, from a
Mm.
scarcity mentality to an abundance mentality.
Would you say that if it wasn't Rich Dad Poor Dad, if you would have picked up another book, do you think that, hey, you could have gone into a different direction, or was there an existing sort of pull to real estate?
So if you read any self-development book or any financial freedom book, there's always little tethers of real estate hidden throughout the pages, right? And the
Mm.
reason for that is because 80 to 90% of millionaires in America become millionaires through real estate. It's a very easy way to become a millionaire. It's an industry that's been around thousands of years and has
Mm.
proven methods over and over and over again, right?
Mm.
So in my journey of self-development through reading Think and Grow Rich, through reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. All these books have little tethers of real estate that if you really read between the line, you could really see it, right? So
Mm.
that's what really kind of opened my eyes, was just going down this path of self-development and just seeing it throughout all of the material that I was kind of researching.
And I think one thing that I want to kind of touch on here, Andrew, is a lot of young entrepreneurs today, and really any entrepreneur for that matter, they go through this stage in their life where they're afraid of taking that first step of, what am I going to do? Is this the right thing for me? Am I going to succeed? Right? And for a lot of people, I think for you especially, I mean, you have this drive. You did touch upon the point that, you were scared of working the 9 to 5 for the rest of your life, but was there something else? Was there like a purpose, a drive inside of you, a hunger other than the fear of continuing the 9 to 5? Was there a why there?
There were plenty of whys, right? I think to answer your question, pe- most reason why people don't actually reach their potential, like you alluded to, is fear, right?
Mm,
It could be fear of the unknown. It could be fear of
mm,
your past. It could be fear of, creating the better version of yourself, right? But this is what really holds people back. And my argument to that is, what are you more fearful of? Are you more fearful of the unknown? Are you more fearful of the status quo, right? Because if this is
mm,
the life that you want to live right now, if it's not, you should absolutely be fearful of what you're doing day in and day out and switch it up, because that's the only way you're going to change your future reality.
mm, mm,
And going back to your why, like my why going into it was to achieve financial freedom. Originally going into my dreams, my aspirations, I wanted to house hack 10 multifamilies in 10 years and retire with 30 units. And for people who don't know, real estate house hack is when you move into a multifamily, 3 to 4 unit property with like a low down payment loan, a 5% down loan, you make your primary residence. That was my original goal, right?
mm.
But but
Yeah,
once the momentum
10x.
starts, yeah, once your momentum starts going behind you, like I went from, HELOCing that condo I told you 80% of my net worth was in. And then I house hacked the property. I bought another property right across the road with that HELOC. I house hacked another property. I bought into a syndication, sold that for a 5-unit later, bought a 6-unit, bought another 6-unit, ran out of my own capital, figured out how to raise money from investors, and then closed on about, 200 doors after that. So it's been quite the journey, but it all started with that I like to call the purple pill, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad.
So, you mentioned just right now your early steps included leveraging HELOC on your condo as well as house hacking.
Yes.
Was this knowledge that you acquired from the books? Did you go into it and just, okay, I'm going to figure this out? Or it sounds like you had a little bit of a strategy in place before you started. You had a plan, no? Or
that you're exactly correct. I went into it with a plan. And when I found real estate, that's when I found other mentors out there who taught real estate. A really good resource that I found was Bigger Pockets, which more or less is the Facebook for real estate investors. They have podcasts, they have forums, they have books, right? So I dove into those books. I dove into those podcasts. I probably listened to over 700 of their podcasts, hour long. That's a lot of research right there. And I just dove into just learning as much as I could from these mentors. One mentor specifically, Brandon Turner, said, you could literally house hack 10 multifamilies in 10 years and retire. I was like, that's an achievable goal. I can save 3 to 5% of a down payment every single year to do this. That seems super achievable to me. So that's what I decided what my goal was, right? But as things start kind of working in your favor, like I never expected that I would be at this level, to be frank with you. This was completely not even in my realm of possibility.
Well, why didn't you think that was possible for you?
I didn't think it was possible for me because I didn't see the path there, right? In hindsight, I'm telling you all the steps that got me to this place. But the reason why these steps got me to this place is because I've had very good mentors and guidance along the path. Every time I hit a roadblock, I ask somebody 5-10 steps ahead of me, what do you do? What did you do in this scenario, right? So I didn't see the vision, but I knew people who had the vision.
What role would you say that mentoring has on, new beginners? If someone going into entrepreneurship, how much percent would you say that equates to the success someone will have? Is it a deal breaker, would you say, or?
I would say 75 to 80% of your success derives from your level of advisors.
That's pretty huge. Yeah.
It is pretty huge, right? Because, you got to think about this, right? Like, say, for example, your best friend's a NBA level basketball player, right? You play basketball with that person every day. Like, how good do you think your skills are going to be versus if you play basketball with just an average guy, right? So if you surround yourself around people doing big things, like to be successful, in my opinion, is a simple equation. You find somebody doing what you do at that level, you figure out what they do on a day-to-day basis, and you copy and paste. It's not freaking rocket science. And that's exactly what I did. My mentor owns 500 plus doors. I saw what he did. He makes 50 plus offers a month. So he does this to raise money from investors. He does this to build a brand, right? And I simply did the same.
I can't speak for everyone here, but when I first started out as an entrepreneur, I had that exact same mindset. I thought I'm going to copy the best in the world and truly work and just everything is going to be easy for me. The one thing that was missing for me, which I later discovered and made things a lot easier, was a real purpose to the work that I was doing. I didn't feel like I was very connected to what I was doing. And this kind of leads me into a bit of that, that mindset that you need to have and the purpose and the why of what it is that you're pursuing. For you, at least, I would say it like this, how would you describe the mindset that you had at the time when facing obstacles, when going through these moments of challenges?
I think the mindset goes around to the fact that, like, to be a successful entrepreneur, Pat, the way to get to yes is through no's, right? If somebody tells you a no when it comes to any sort of situation, that the solution to me is just find another person that's going to get it to a yes, right? And I think a lot of people that don't succeed in entrepreneurship, ask one person one question about a potential opportunity, they get their opinion, and if it's negative, they're like, oh, I can't do it, right? That's not how me, my business partner, people I know at high levels operate. They ask, how can we get this done? Right? What can we do to get this to the finish line? Right? And there are there's millions of solutions to get to yes.
Yeah.
In today's world, you just got to be creative enough to understand and to devise those complex solutions.
Yeah, because I can come with a good example here. So like, let's say, look at Elon Musk, right? I mean, this guy's working, God knows how many hours, 100 hours plus a week, right? If you really wanted to copy him, you know, it's like, he could tell you exactly step by step, this is what I do. Not everyone would be able to follow that. I think very few people would be able to follow his work routine, his work ethic. And so, you know, like what I'm trying to get into here is sort of the what kind of a mindset do you need to have? What is important for someone to be able to copy the best? What do you need? What qualities do you need? Is there anything specific there that sticks out?
Discipline and understanding the importance of habits. To achieve success, you really need to be conscientious of what defines this success, right? We call them key performance indicators. What do I need to do on a daily basis to get me to my weekly goals, to get me to my monthly goals, to get me to my yearly goals, right? So if my goal is to close on 200 units a year, that would equate to me having to make, you know, potentially 50 offers a month, which would equate to 2 offers accepted a month, right? And that might be 20 units, which would equal 200 units over the course of a year, right? And the habit associated with getting those offers would be walking a certain amount of properties, making a certain amount of offers, underwriting a certain amount of properties, right? So understanding these key performance indicators and how to incorporate that into your daily habits is incredibly important to be successful. In my opinion, you know, most people, I mean, in my opinion, everybody has the ability to reach their highest potential. The only thing holding them back is discipline and habits. And like you said, a strong why.
What are some habits that you have been a big difference for you in your success?
So most of my habits have been mindset related, right? So I do a morning practice called the Miracle Morning. So are you familiar with the Miracle Morning?
Yeah, not really.
Okay,
I've heard of it, but it's mindfulness.
It's in a sense it's mindfulness. So this guy Al Helrod, he wrote this book Miracle Morning. And there's a bunch of them. Miracle Morning for real estate agents, Miracle Morning for whatever. There's a bunch of them, right? And what he did was he figured out of the most successful people in the world, what are their morning routines? And he figured out the most successful people in the world have 6 morning routines. And he bases it off of the acronym SAVERS. S for silence, A for affirmation, V for visualization, E for exercise, R for reading, S for scribing. So I do those morning routines every single morning, or I at least try to do as much as I can every single morning. That's key because, you know, when I'm having, I could write down my goals and write down what can I do today to push my 1-year, 5-year, 10-year goals, right? Meditation, get my mindset right so I enter the day the best version of myself. Reading, I really get to work out the mind. Like I work on my body, I get to work on my mind. Fitness, very self-explanatory, right? Visualization, you can actually visualize the reality you're trying to live. And then affirmations, speaking in reality, words have power, right? So when I started really incorporating these morning routines and incorporating these routines with my business goals, that's really what my business scaled.
So your business goals were essentially the center of focus in your affirmations, in your visualization. You saw yourself succeeding in your business goals.
Absolutely. I definitely did. I visualized the future that I want to create. You know, I also recommend, to your point, like coming up with a strong why. What's that book? What's it? Vivid Vision. You heard of it?
No, never.
Vivid Vision is a fantastic book that more or less it tells you, you know, write a vivid vision of what your future dream life is going to be, right? What it looks like on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah.
And then once you figure out what your dream life is going to look like, you reverse engineer it, right? And that very much helps you create the why, right? And the vivid vision could be like traveling with your family, could be creating an amazing charity to help people around the world. Like, but that's going to create the why, and it's going to create the habits to get you to that vivid vision 1 year, 5 year, 10 years from now.
I think this is, it's really visualization of your future, right? And I think it's something that I'm, deep into now is NLP, and it's all about trying to visualize your future self and then using certain techniques to try and get you in that state now, right? So you can live that. But, you know, during your journey, Andrew, I mean, I'm sure you've had periods in your life building your business that have been tough. How do what are some examples of challenges that you faced and how did you overcome those?
So a quick example of a challenge that was extremely challenging that me and my partner thankfully overcame was back in January of last year. Decided, it was time I've been putting a lot of work. I think at that point it was up to 30, 40 units. I was really I wanted to taste the fruits of my labor. So I decided, I'm going to go to Peru for a week, to go off the grid, not have internet, not have anything, right? Just be with myself, right? Some inner work, right? When I came back, my partner had over 50 units under contract. And to that point, that was literally that was 50% of my current portfolio. It was a lot of work. And at that point, me and my partner, our entire organization encompassed me, him, and an operations manager. So we had a 3-person workforce. So managing that level of work combined with not having a team made it extremely challenging. And simultaneously, I still have my W-2, right? And I was an investor-focused agent, which I currently am, and I have 6 agents work under me, right? So I literally had 3 jobs while managing 100 something units and onboarding 50 more units. So it was incredibly challenging. I don't know how much I slept during that period. However, over that time, me and my partner learned how to build a team, learned how to create culture, learned how to utilize personality tests to put people in the right seats based off their strengths. And now our team excels. I think we have over 13 people on our team, all of which are superstars. So
yeah.
That was extremely challenging. I mean, I barely made it through it, but thankfully I did.
But I think, that's really what separates those who succeed and don't, right? It's getting through there. And there's, what's the saying? Diamonds are formed under pressure. Something like that, right? But you're essentially exposed to a lot of stress, challenging moments, but you figure a way out. When you're in that moment, what was the drive? What kept you going? Was there I have to do this, I have no other choice? Or was it, otherwise I'm gonna lose these 50 contracts or whatever it was? But what kind of kept you going through all that work?
Believing that I knew that we can get it done. I mean, in this reality, I truly believe that your consciousness can create anything you want to be. And if you put enough drive and you put enough energy and you put enough thought into any given goal, you can make it a reality. So the answer is, how did I think it could happen? Because I knew it was going to happen. I had no doubt in my mind it was not going to happen. And because of that, I always found a solution.
Conviction, essentially.
Yes.
You really said faith, yeah.
And I'm not a religious person, but I will say, so it's good to have faith in yourself.
Yes. How big of a role has that played for you, having that faith?
Believing in myself has played a huge role, right? During my whole ascension in real estate, I've held W-2, right? And I actually recently just left my W-2 4 months ago. And to be frank, I did not want to leave my W-2. I wanted to hold on to that security as much as I could. But this is why it's incredibly powerful to surround yourself around people doing bigger things, because they push you out of your uncomfortability. And I'll just give you a quick example of that. So I decided to go to a mastermind. It's called the Austin Entrepreneurial Summit. I'm part of a mastermind called GoBundance. They lead the summit. And there's a bunch of very influential, super successful people there. Cody Sanchez, small business acquisition expert. She was guest speaking. Very crowd of very influential people, right? And we were talking about, we were having some masterminds. Somebody's like, what is one thing holding you back that would bring you to the next level? And I got up, got the mic, and I said, leaving my W-2. That would get me to the next level, but I'm absolutely frightened of doing that.
Yeah.
And the host said, all right, well, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a date right now by the time that you have to leave your W-2. And if you don't leave it, we're going to shave that beard of yours. And I was like, you ain't shaving the freaking beard. And then the crowd of 500 people proceeded to start yelling, quit your job, quit your job, quit your job. It was literally like one of those dreams where you're like naked in front of a crowd. Like, oh my God. But that pushed me to actually follow through with my word and leave that job. And since leaving that job 3-4 months ago, I've 3 to 4x my annual income at that job. So
crazy.
Exactly. So, the unknown is not always a bad thing.
I mean, what you're saying here is, I think, so true. There is this saying is also very, very mainstream, but you are the sum of your 5 closest friends and the people you surround yourself with, right? And I think if you surround yourself with people who challenge you, who push you, kind of force you to become better, because the alternative is for you was shaving the beard. Others, it's kind of like you failed. You don't want to be looked down upon. You don't want. You kind of like pushed, forced to grow. And I think that is so key for people wanting to grow themselves. It's like surround yourself with people that can help you grow. Surround yourself with people that won't drag you down, that don't, just sit at home on the weekends and after work and just smoke weed and play video games, because that's not going to get you to where you want to go, right? You want to surround yourself with people that are going to lift you up, essentially. And that's what you did. And today, I mean, you're managing and scaling 300 plus units, you're growing your team. What are some big lessons that you've learned managing a team, building a business?
So every time I do one of these podcasts, I always feel like I have different lessons learned depending on where I am in my business, right? And at this stage in my business, we are really into building a really good team, building a really good culture, and putting the right people in the right seats, right? So what has really been a huge game changer for me as of recently is utilizing personality tests and understanding the actual individual on whether they align with your culture, and then aligning their personality tests with the right tasks in your organization, and aligning those tasks with your overarching goal of the organization. Just like how I have KPIs, my organization has KPIs. That feeds down to the department level. That feeds down to the individual level. At the individual level, that person's skill set should match with that KPI to get me to the goals, right? So it's like this. It's almost like people chess. If that makes any sense. And that's what's really kind of, I think, brought my business to the next level is, when you're really trying to scale, you're really trying to grow, building teams is really kind of the next stage to really exponential growth.
Yeah. And I mean, because you were essentially applying your personal goals, like the thought process, right? Of reverse engineering the process of like, this is my yearly goal, this is my monthly goal, this is my weekly goal. When you kind of break it down, you do the same for your business, essentially. Right. And through that, you're able to just say, okay, well, on the micro scale, these employees need to do this, and then they need to make sure, that they report this to the manager. He's responsible for making sure they hit their goals, and then it kind of goes up and you hit your goals. What about challenges that you've had in growing your business? What's one of the biggest challenges that you've had or that you're currently facing that you find hard as a business owner?
Well, a challenge I've had in the past, which really definitely tested me, but also reflected the power of having a good mentor, was during my first large-scale deal. I got a 69-unit portfolio under contract in New Bedford, Massachusetts, which is about an hour south of Boston. This particular property was about 69 units. I believe we were buying it for around $5.5 million. And we're combining that with bank financing. So we needed to bring $1.8 million to the table to close in this deal. And we were raising money from investors. This is a deal that, we're putting the deal together, we're managing it, we're getting a piece of it, but primarily a lot of the upside are going to the investors who are bringing the capital. So about 3 weeks before close, we were very short of the capital. I think we raised about 1.1 million. We needed to raise 1.8 million, right? So at that point, I had a decision to make. Do I want 100% of nothing, or do I want a smaller percentage of something, right? And I decided I want a smaller percentage of something. So at that point, I decided, rather than not closing on this property, let me bring it to my mentor. He'll raise the remaining capital. Yes, he'll take equity for doing that, but we're going to close on the deal, right? And that's exactly what we did. At a certain point, I had to reconcile with myself and say, hey, I don't have the ability to get this job done. Let me ask for help. and get it done that way, right? And I think that exemplifies the fact that there's always a way to get to the goal, right? Like if you don't have the solution, somebody else does. Like, yeah, it may cost you money, it may cost you resources, but you can get to the finish line if you put your mind to it.
So your mentor then pitched in capital so you could close that deal essentially.
My mentor raised the remaining $800,000, so we closed the deal, and he became a general partner on the deal and participated in the upside.
I see. So you went outside and you said, how can I solve this? And he was an option to help you through that challenge. So it's really about thinking outside the box as well there, I would say, right?
Exactly. I mean, people think the solution has to come from here. It can come from somebody else too, right? And I think that further exemplifies the fact that, like, you know, when you're trying to do something new, you're trying to be successful in an unknown field, be extremely careful where you get advice from, right? Like, I'm not gonna go to LeBron James and ask him for plumbing advice. I'm gonna go to LeBron James and ask him for basketball advice, right? So let me ask you this: why do when people start buying property, they go to their family and ask them for their advice? Most of the time, the family own no property or only own their primary residence. What do they know about owning rental property? You should be asking that question from somebody like me, somebody from my mentor, somebody who actually owns rental property. Otherwise, they don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they're really just talking from a place of unknown and fear, right? They want you. They don't want you to hurt yourself. But a lot of times, that perspective holds you back from reaching your full potential.
Would you say that that is a mistake that a lot of people make? They ask the wrong people for advice?
I think that's one of the biggest mistakes in this world. I think many people people confide in their family in every issue, which I think is the wrong approach. Maybe if your family were great parents, confide with them on being a good parent. Maybe if they have really good fitness, confide them on your fitness goals, right? But nobody's an expert in everything, right? Like, I wouldn't advise you to ask me for relationship advice. That's not my expertise, but you should ask me for real estate advice, right? So everybody has their strengths and everybody has their weaknesses, and you should leverage that in regards to seeking expert advice and know when not to take it from the wrong people.
I think that is really good advice, Andrew, because a lot of people automatically go to their friends or their family or someone they know, right? Or it might even just be the best person that they know in their city. And, you know, a friend of mine actually taught me a very basic framework that he calls it the top of the mountain framework, which is essentially like, so if I were to draw a mountain like this that scales up, you know, after each high point, it goes up and up and up. He essentially said that, like, and he put this very well. So he said that, like, if you have a kid who's trying to learn how to play soccer, football, right? And he wants to do tricks. Yeah, and he asked me this. He says, Darren, you know, who would that kid look at? Would he go to like some random, you know, forward at his local club? Or is he going to go on YouTube and look for Ronaldo or Messi, right? And he goes, and what are they in relation to the guy in the city? Well, they are the world's best. And you know, that principle really stuck with me because a lot of people just don't apply that in other aspects of their life, right? These are kids that just want to play football. But if you want to look at your relationship, or if you want to talk about business, or if you want to talk about real estate, you don't go to the person that, you know, your family, your mom, who you may not know too much about it. You're trying to think, who is the best in the world? Like, what am I trying to achieve? Who can I talk to? Who can I get in touch with? Let me see if I can get in touch with someone who is at the top of their game, or at least who have achieved some level of success, because a lot of people just will get the wrong advice. And I think a lot of people want to help as well. So when someone would ask you for advice, not necessarily you, but you know, another person, they're going to be like, of course I can help you. I'll give you my advice. But what they fail to also communicate is, I'm not an expert. You know, don't 100% take my word for it. And then that person is going to go and do that thing. Right. And, you know, for the audience as well, I think that a lot of people, like, just make sure to not make that mistake. Right. But for you then, Andrew, going back to your business, right? Building your company, your operations, everything else. What is the one thing that you've seen other real estate businesses or other people wanting to get into real estate, what common mistake do they often make that you've sort of seen while you've been building yours? Like, on the topic of advice, bad advice, like what thing do they do that you see is like, hey, in this industry, they do this?
I would say paying for coaches and mentors. The best people in this world in any given field understand the value of coaches and understand the value of mentors. More or less, it's a cheat code to skip time. Yeah, you may have to pay with money, right? But you skip years and years and years of trial and tribulation to get to your end goal. So the biggest mistake I see from people in my industry is they have a one man army mindset. I'm going to power through this. I'm going to get through this and I'm going to achieve my goals. And yeah, it may take you 10, 15 years to accumulate 30, 40, 50 units and be financially free. Or you can seek guidance from my mentor, somebody like me, who's done it in 3 or 4 years, and figure out how can I do it quicker, right? So yes, it's more resources up front, but it saves you time, which ultimately is our most valuable resource. Ultimately, all of us want financial freedom. All of us want to achieve our goals, so we have control of time. That's why. That's really why we do it. So, understanding where you can save time and where you could skip time is incredibly powerful for scaling.
And what role has, having had a mentor, having that mindset had on you on giving back to the community? Are you engaged in giving back? I mean, you're here on the podcast, which means you have an inclination to share your story and give value at. But for you, how has having had a mentor and coaches in the past shaped how you share your knowledge with others today?
So I realized this pretty early on in my journey, that the more value you provide to the world, the more value the world will provide back. So how do I provide and why do I provide? First of all, I provide value to the world because I just feel I need to give it back, because I wouldn't be where I'm at without the people that lend a hand to me along the path. But, in regards to what I actually do to give back, I host one of the largest real estate meetups in Worcester. It's a completely free event, focusing on educating others on the power of investing in real estate to achieve financial freedom. I go on podcasts. I put out free social media content on how to invest in real estate. I have mentors that I train, right? So these are some tactics I use to give back, which I find incredibly rewarding.
Do you have a goal for helping people out?
Yeah, my goal is I would love to teach over 10,000 people how to achieve financial freedom and help them along the path. I would like to see others achieve a certain level of success that I have achieved. I also want to write a book and help others to get over what I refer to as thought freedom. A lot of people let these negative, invasive thoughts control their day-to-day rather than being conscientious of your thoughts, because that's very much what brought me down in my inception of my journey. Is my thoughts would go to these negative scarcity places. And after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, I realized the magnitude of these invasive thoughts, and I realized how to switch it over to more of a positive mentality, or of thoughts that go towards my goals rather than away from my goals.
I'm curious about that as well, that negativity side and the mindset that you had. What about external negativity? When someone negative came into your life, how would you handle that? If they had this very scarcity negative mindset, or they projected that negativity towards you, how did you engage with those people? And not sure if you had any very close relationships with those people, but how would you go about that? What's the best way forward for someone who might be in that situation?
You got to protect the gardens of your mind. You got to be very conscientious of what information goes into your mind. We are all influenced. It's unavoidable. We're influenced by the information surrounded by us. So you've got to be conscientious of your environment, right? So what does that mean? Like, I don't listen to news, right? The only news I listen to are select podcasts, right? Or people that I want to learn from and receive guidance from. I surround myself around people doing what I want to do at a larger scale, right? Like if I want to be a good father, if I want to be in good shape, I'm going to surround myself around other fit people, around other good parents, right? Like, I'm very conscientious of who I surround myself with. And to your point, along your journey, some people just aren't their mindset isn't at the same level you're at, right? And unfortunately, you just have to, I'm not saying cut them out of your life. They could be family members, but you unfortunately have to reduce the time they spend with you. Because at the end of the day, you're the average of the 5 people you associate yourself with, right? Like if 5 of your friends are Bill Bill Gates, Elon Musk, all these high level people, I guarantee you're going to be a freaking millionaire or billionaire, right? Or if, 4 of your 5 friends are potheads that sit on the couch and smoke weed all day and that's all they do, I guarantee your life is going to be very similar, right? So you got to be conscientious of who you surround yourself with, because that's going to be a reflection of your life in the future.
Yeah. I think that is so important because throughout my life I've had a lot of negative people come in and I've sometimes allowed them to get a little bit too close to me, and I've noticed what an effect that has had on my just mental health and my thought process.
Mm.
And I think that a lot of people can actually, if they've gone through something similar as well, they're gonna, the best thing that you can do is just distance yourself, like you said, because it's hard to cold cut someone from your life, right? Like just even if it's family, just I'm never going to talk to you again. And I think there is a metaphor for this. Is it, like the frog in the boiling water or something like that? Have you heard of this?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's how does it go? It's you.
Yeah, so there's a frog in warm water and you slowly boil it, and because it's incrementally happening, the frog doesn't feel it until it's too late.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So and that was essentially having that approach to, if it's hard for people to kind of make that cut straight away, just distance yourself over time. So, Andrew, what about, someone wanting to get into real estate today? I mean, you already gave a lot of great advice. Especially coaching, which was like the number one thing, number one hack. But for anyone looking to get into real estate today, what advice would you give them? Like, what would the practical step by, if you had to provide a step-by-step plan, it's like, hey, do this and this and this. How would that look like?
So it would first involve you looking at your net worth and looking at your asset allocation, right?
Hmm.
Where's your money? Is it in your stock? Is it in your 401k? Is it in your primary residence? And then how can you transition this well into cash flowing assets, right? So say, for example, you want to get into real estate, you got money in your 401k, you got money in stock, right? In that case, what I highly recommend is you do a really low risk strategy called a house hack, where you move into an owner occupied property, multifamily preferably, so you get your living costs as close to zero as possible, and you use a low down payment owner occupied loan, a FHA loan, 3.5% down, a 5% conventional loan, and you leverage your FK or your stock and get into a 3 or 4 unit, live in 1 unit, rent out the other 2, the other 3, live for free, potentially make money. At that rate, your saving rate is going to go from a 10, 20% to a 60, 70%. Just start saving every month. Do that again in year 2, year 3, as many years as you can do it. Even if you get 3 or 4 years, that's 12, 14 units. And then at that point, you're probably good 10, 20, 30% towards financial freedom. And you could feel the momentum. And then at that point, that's when you can start getting the bigger projects, right? But that's a really easy, low-risk strategy that most people already have the resources today and they don't even realize it.
For someone who is dead broke, would that mean they'd have to save up some funds before they get into it?
So somebody who's dead broke would have to earn before they can reap the rewards, right? So that would mean find a side hustle that can get you large payments quickly to get you that real estate, right? And the easiest way to get those large payments is through sales, right? And not only regular sales, high ticket item sales, right?
Yeah.
We're talking like become a real estate agent, sell $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 property, get 2% on that. Like that's big money, as opposed to selling TVs or selling massage chairs, right? Like that's not big money. And start building up that war chest until you have enough plus reserves, right? Real estate's expensive to own. I never advise anybody to go into real estate without, a good $10, $20, $30,000 in the bank in case something happens. And then at that point, start with the house hack as I recommended. But to your point, the key, you first got to earn, and then once you earn, you got to invest, right? And you got to figure out invest.
Invest. Okay, yeah.
I don't know if you want to like cut that out.
We can edit.
Perfect.
So we're good. Okay, so yeah, invest and invest as much as you can. But one thing you mentioned as well was sales, right? And I think sales is one of those skills that I think are so valuable because you can sell yourself, your brand, your personal brand. You can sell products. And, when I say sell yourself, not in the, in that way, but sales is such a valuable skill, I think, universal, just no matter what industry you're in. For real estate, are there any specific skills that are just really good to have other than
Oh yeah.
sales?
So in real estate, in some other industries, it might be about sales tactics that might score you the deal, right? Like, for
Mm,
example, a car salesman, right? That's not the case in real estate. The best salesmen in real estate are people that are trustworthy. So the key to
mm,
being trustworthy is being extremely ethical, right?
mm,
So say, for example, I have a property under contract for a client, something comes to light that makes it not a bad deal. Me ethically, I would tell him, hey, doesn't make sense, back out of the deal, move on. Like in that particular case, I make no money. I only make money when it sells. But if
mm,
you're unethical, you might try to push that deal forward because there's a 10, 15, 20K commission at the end of it, right?
mm.
So being ethical and being extremely trustworthy is incredibly important, especially when you get in these high ticket cost items where, this is some of the largest purchases people make in their entire life.
I mean, one thing that I've seen about this industry as well is the importance of trust and building relationships, right? Because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
it comes down to this, and this is essentially what you're saying as well, is you need to be able to have that quality of, being able to build that trust, being authentic, being genuine, not being deceitful, and trying to trick people because you want to make a quick 10K or 20K, whatever it is. So yeah, the combination of those two, sales and that, would you say are very important to succeed? Well, you didn't say that sales was important to succeed. I said that sales was just, that was
Well,
my opinion, but
and at the end of the day, when you and I say sales, I'm sure there's plenty of other people out there, including myself, that I'm an introvert that cringe, right? Like, I'm not a freaking salesman. That's wrong. Sales is completely
mm,
a skill you can learn, right? And there are so many strong introverted salesmen I know that are crushing
mm,
it, right?
yeah.
So, just because you're considered a salesman doesn't mean you have to be an extrovert. Doesn't mean you even have to like people. It just
Hmm.
means you have to learn the skills to be successful in this particular trade and lean into it.
Absolutely. I spoke to a person. His name was Philip. He's a huge business, Carlton International. And when I asked him about sales, he said that the sale happens when the client says no. And that's when you begin. And a lot of the times, people will always, when they get the first no, it's just like, oh, okay. But that's when the sale starts. I agreed with him because it's all about trying to uncover what objections do you have. Why not, right? It's like it's spot on what you said because you don't have to be an extrovert to be a salesperson. You just got to know I have a product or service that I believe can help you. You don't think that's the case, but here I am to talk to you about how and convince you essentially why that is the case, why I think it will benefit you, and then that person will make up their mind, right? So I will sell to you because I also in property, like obviously when you're dealing with real estate, I'm sure there is a little bit of negotiation involved. I mean, I know there is. Is it hard to sell? Is it hard to acquire properties? Is that a challenge? Or is it easy?
It gets easier over time. When you
Mm-hmm.
more units you own, the longer you've been in the business, the more value you provide to the world. People end up just bringing you deals. People end up just bringing you opportunities. Yesterday alone, I told myself, hey, I'm going to stop buying stuff. I'm going to close what I have. I have like 60, 70 units under contract. And then I had 3 people bring me really good deals all of a sudden. And I'm like, oh man, right? It's like,
Not bad. Yeah.
yeah. So, the more people see what you're doing, the more light you shed on your actual business, the more opportunity that will come your way. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's been really good from an opportunity standpoint. And at this point, I really don't search for deals. People just bring me deals.
That was really good. That was really good. Takes time to get there though, no? I mean, that's a lot of reputation that goes into that, right? Getting handed deals.
It is. But it also comes down to understanding incentives. People,
Yeah.
people are incentivized by how it's going to positively or negatively affect them, right? So, me and my partner on many occasions offer people equity, offer people finder's fees for bringing
Uh-huh.
us deals, right? And we're very generous with our equity splits. We're very generous with our finder's fee because at the end of the day, we know for this to benefit us, it's got to benefit you, right? So we really try to align incentive. And going back to that, and then this brings it full circle with our team, is we very much pay, we pay an hourly wage, right? But we also incentivize them based on the results we want, right? So we give some of my property managers a percentage of the revenue received to ensure that they keep my portfolio rented, right? Like I give my operations manager a certain bonus for every off-market lead they bring to us that we close on, right? These are things like I incentivize the KPIs I want to get to my business goals that I want within my business as well. So understanding incentives and understanding what drives people is really important in negotiations, but also pushing your goal forward.
And speaking of goals, Andrew, what is your goal now for your business? So where are you planning on heading? You shared your goal of helping 10,000 people, but for your business, how does that look like?
So my ultimate goal is I want to syndicate 10,000 rental units. I want to actively own 500 doors myself. I want to write a book, travel to 100 countries because I absolutely love traveling, help 10,000 people reach financial independence and eventually start a family. That's my ultimate goal. My current year's goals is I want to do a Worcester syndication fund where raise money from investors to buy value add properties in Worcester, my main market. I want to open up a rent by the room gym to rent to trainers on a hourly basis. And I want to increase our portfolio by around 200 doors, as well as probably travel to around 10 to 15 places throughout the year. So that's kind of my year goal right now.
Yeah, that's pretty big. I love that.
Well, it's definitely achievable based off my last year. I think we're probably going to achieve that 6 months in, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So what about how do you use AI in your business?
Good question. I use
I'm always,
ChatGPT all the time, especially
uh,
with like communication, right? So I do, we deal with a lot of investor money, right? So what does that mean? We have a lot of investor communication. We need to provide investors a lot of updates. We need to, there's a lot of back and forth, right? So utilizing ChatGPT to create draft emails for me or to review data for me and provide insight into it. Like, for example, I had this deal, almost fall through because it appraised low. So we actually have to go to the appraiser and contest the appraisal results saying like, hey, this value doesn't make sense. It's actually this because of X, Y, Z. And how did I do that? I tossed it in ChatGPT and asked me some recommendations and it allowed me to think, okay, those are some good ideas. How can I expand on that, right? So I use ChatGPT in many aspects of my business, even for like social media posts. Like I'll create a social media short, all my virtual assistant upload it, and it will create captions for me, right? So it's like, there's so many aspects that I use AI that it's probably countless at this point.
Yeah, yeah, no, because I spoke with another person who worked with real estate agents and helped them incorporate AI into their business using data, and has huge success so far. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. Because one of the things that he mentioned was that and this is the reason why I asked you, is because he mentioned that a lot of companies or people who work in the real estate industry haven't implemented AI into their business. I mean, they'll use AI for certain things, but they haven't really incorporated into their business so as to make it very efficient. They save time, they can
I'll,
improve systems and
I-
operations.
I'll give you I'll give you one quick example of how we incorporate it. And don't get me wrong, there's always areas for improvements, and we absolutely can incorporate AI better into my business. But we have an accounts payable email that all of our vendors, contractors send, invoices to this accounts payable email. We pay it twice a week, right? So now we created an AI actually compiles all of the emails into a shareable Google Excel, and then it actually reads the AI ChatGPT reads the email for us and provides a quick synopsis of it, like in the description, right? And after something's paid, gets taken off the list automatically, and the list is only what has not been paid. So in that particular case, ChatGPT can provide us insight into these invoices without us having to physically kind of read all these specific requests.
That's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet. All right, final question for you now. I think you've touched on so many great things, like I mentioned earlier as well, but what is the one thing you would say to someone who's watching this and wanting to get into real estate?
I would tell people that your limitation in entrepreneurship and creating a business and creating the dream life that you want to live is 100% correlated to your desire for self-development. to really kind of get to the next level, you have to be the best version of yourself every single day. And that requires you to be a voracious learner. That requires you to really, like, day in and day out, want to improve yourself on the best person that you could possibly be, right? Like, just imagine yourself, 10, 15 years ago. Could you imagine yourself today and the amount of knowledge you have compared to back then? Like, it's insurmountable, right? So if you put the time and effort, if you put 3 to 5 hours of self-development in every single day, like, it literally compounds to a level you didn't even comprehend years from now. You're literally going to be a completely different person. So that would be my key to success, is really, like, be all about self-development, because sooner or later it's going to hit a peak and you're going to go to new levels you didn't think were possible.
What's one thing you would tell the audience in terms of what's the lesson you would give them?
The lesson I would give people is, find a mentor doing what you want to do at a larger scale, and try to go out of your way to provide as much value to them and expect nothing in return. Sooner or later, the concept of reciprocity will kick in. And after you help this person a certain much, they're going to want to help you, right? And that's the key to finding a mentor. And that's the key to really growing in any business you're trying to grow in.
Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was a pleasure having you here. For anyone...
You shut up, laugh right now. I like what I was there. We should just put that in there. Just call that a day.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Wait, hold up. Can we do this?
Hey, it's all right if we can't. It's all right.
Yeah. So I'll just try one more time. Okay.
It's all right. We can't do it. It's fine, man.
Never mind.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.